John?
Well, when you're building a mobile app and you realize that this app is going to touch, hundreds and thousands of people, you start to forget about sort of the impact and the magnitude of those numbers, and you get real wrapped up and excited about what it's going to become out there and the impact it's going to have. And the next thing you know, it's 1 a.m. and you're sitting in the war room and you're testing out apps, and you realize that at some point you do need to sleep. But it's an exciting feeling. So I would say, if I had to give you an answer, it's certainly not less than 12, 13 hours a day.
Raja?
Yeah, it's 7 days a week, nonstop. I'm not eating or sleeping.
365?
Playing with my kids.
But when you're eating, you're working. You're snoozing
It gets bad when I'm on my headset playing with my children. I try not to do that, but
But it happens.
But it happens. But on the flip side, to Gavin's point, I think it's critical. Like when we're looking at, whether a label's looking at signing a band or whether we're looking at commissioning a show, you might have two shows that are both good or two bands that are both good. The difference of what we choose is always about hustle. Always about hustle. Yeah. Who's going to work it harder? Who's going to be on social media more? Who's going to be touring more? Who's going to be like that makes all the difference in the world. Mm-hmm. And that's I think the big change. There's anyone can. There is a lot of great music out there, even created on laptops, I think.
Oh.
But the difference is. Yeah.
Hey, it was no slight to creating on laptops. I just want to clarify. There's a large space between a person can be successful on their own and anyone can do it. And the expression anyone can do it is getting thrown around in cultural industries, and I find that really offensive. I'm not a creative person. I'm a business person, and I don't think I could write a book and distribute it just because I could write a book and distribute it. I think we have to have more respect for our artists as a society.
So given that we have 90
People
seconds
can
left,
do it themselves,
that
sure.
was Tara's answer.
Well,
Sarah?
my
No,
answer
we have
really
2
quick-
minutes left, and there's one question I want to get to, so that was your answer. Sarah,
The
please
whole
go
of the
ahead.
Canadian book publishing industry is built on sweat equity. I mean, as long as if you got a laptop or you've got a smartphone, you're working whenever anybody wants you. I mean, a writer will email you on a Sunday and say, "Have you thought of this person to give a blurb for my book?" And you're like, "Oh, shit." And you do.
Nathan?
The first 2 years of Cappy was me working at places like Marble Media for, I hate to say it because I saw Mark here, 13 hours, 14 hours, and then coming home and doing another full day of work on games just to try to get the company started. You don't work in video games for an 9 to 5, or you don't work in any industry. You don't start a business in any industry.
And so I would certainly, before throwing the last question, interject that by that definition, what the government can do is properly fund healthcare. Because clearly, and I say this as someone with a chronic illness, clearly we are excluding Ontarians who are not able-bodied and fully healthy, which is something we have to acknowledge if we want to have the best and the brightest, because the best and the brightest may not have the health to do what's clearly required. Same is true of politics. You can't be a cabinet minister unless you only need 4 hours of sleep. So that's why we have idiots as cabinet ministers. One last question there in the back.
Well, I was actually going to make a comment about what you were saying, but I think Tara kind of summed it up. I mean, the fact that you can create content all by yourself in your room, that doesn't mean that you should. You know what? You can laugh, but the point is that the disconnect maybe for you in your question this morning was that we're all here as part of business enterprises. And that's the key distinction, right? There's a lot of people who make stuff at home, and that's terrific and great. And maybe they don't need it to be paid, and maybe they don't care about being paid, and maybe they shouldn't be paid. But they're not in the business of making content, whereas musicians are, filmmakers are, book people are. And that's why we're here to talk about business strategies, not about the philosophy of whether somebody who is doesn't care about doing a shit.
And we're going to give Jill the last word because we are out of time, and time is money. Jill?
I think we can talk about business models without being incredibly creative. I think it's time to let go of some of the strategies that say more every year, bigger cars, and start to think about kind of being niche creators, dealing with building relationships with people, real people, and making the money out of that, rather than supporting bigger corporations and bigger bottom lines every year. Because I don't think the time for that is today anymore. And you guys have to be because you're the business guys, you've got to be really as creative as we do when we face these new technologies. We're looking at completely throwing out our way of thinking and creating new ways of thinking, to do what we've done traditionally, and I call on you to do exactly the same thing if you're there to help us as creators monetize our work.
So please thank our panel for joining us today and sharing their views. Certainly, from a fashion perspective, the diversity demonstrated by this panel provides multiple perspectives. I hope all of you stay for the rest of the day to share your remarks as questions in the rest of the panel. Thank you.